I can't wait to get stuck into another day. I'm definitely feeling ready for it, so it's time to get moving. I'm sure you could have guessed, but using a Mylar bivy bag, the main problem is condensation. But that's easily dealt with in the morning. Just turn it inside out, hang it up somewhere. This is more than halfway to being dry, and it's only been up for about 5 minutes. So yeah, I'm confident that everything will be dry by the time I've had my breakfast. And talking of that, it is definitely time to get breakfast. That was home for the day. What was the dog? Dog waters. Dog walk about. Actually, not getting eyeball. They can't miss me with all the stuff hanging out. Or not. Not even a glance. Brekkie Sam. Nice hot chocolate. Might seem like a strange breakfast to some, but it's good for recovery for my muscles, especially as I add a fair bit of whey protein to it as well. So I've got just a small little fire going, although it's arguably nearly out at this point. Just to warm this up a little bit. I'm not going to boil it or anything, I'm just warming it up, so I don't want a really big hot fire. I'll just burn it to death. I can have it cold, but it's nice to have it warm, so that's basically what I'm doing at this point, just warming it up. Perfect. Oh yeah, cold enough to drink quick, but hot enough to warm me up. Oh yeah, made to perfection. So cocoa powder, sugar, milk powder, and some whey protein as well. Paul, you can keep your tea. I'll have my hot chocolate. Oh dear. Well, it's lovely to be starting out on a camp. It's something I particularly like. I always like the second day or third day in, when it's, rather than starting at home and getting walking, I'm actually starting from some place like this where I'm essentially en route straight away. There's no getting there in by train at first or messing around, and I don't have to get loads of stuff ready at home. It's just, I'm already sorted, I'm good to go, and I can just chill. And obviously I've got to get my gear packed away and stuff like that, but that's just part of it really, and it's a pleasure just to keep things nice and simple. I'm guessing for a lot of you, just like me, that's what camping's all about, really keeping it simple on the campsite and just enjoying simplicity and the outdoors, and just keeping it chill. And that's what I intend to do today, a nice chill one, because I've only got 12.5 miles to go. Only, he says. But oh, excuse me. Yeah, it's promising to be a good one. The sun's been out quite a lot. It has just gone behind the cloud, which is not a bad thing really. I don't really want to be baked by the sun constantly, but I think it'll make a fair few appearances today, and I'll be enjoying that. So that's it for breakfast. I'm going to finish this off, spread out my gear, and show you all about what I'm carrying, I guess. Alright, well, that's the campsite packed up. Ooh, some geese over there. I think they might have the idea that I might feed them. So what's good is, now that I'm all packed up and all away from the camp spot, I'm just another walker, so I can relax and chill. It's quite a busy spot here actually, a lot more traffic to and from than I originally thought there would be. Right, so the big sack of crap. So in my little, let me spin around a bit. Actually, you know what, as comfortable as this bench is, let's start with these, and then I can use these. So, strapped to the back as always, the ultralight fire pit, and then obviously as another thing you've seen me use so much, but I never leave home without them. Well, that's not true. I never come on a hike without them. In my 2 sit mats. I like to have 2 just because I can double up the thickness and it makes them more comfortable. But also, sometimes I'll sit on one and sit on this one and use this one as like a platform to put things on, or sometimes I need to put my hand down if it's like really like sort of muddy, wet conditions. It's nice to be able to put my hand down to get myself up and down out of my like seating position, and I don't really want a muddy hand while I'm trying to cook and do all stuff like that. So having a clean space just to like put my hand down or kneel on and stuff is really beneficial. And last but not least, sometimes it's nice to share the comfort. And if I'm out with Noah or Tim or anyone like that, if I'm going to sit down, I'll use a mat, and I'll always offer, would you like a sit mat, if I feel like the conditions warrant it. I wouldn't necessarily at a bench like this, but if we're sitting on a log and it's a bit damp or something, because these not only keep you a bit more comfortable in terms of softening up whatever you're sitting on, but they keep your bum dry as well. So that's added bonus. But highly recommended these. Don't take up any packs like sort of space, because I put them on the outside, and yeah, they're just excellent for just the weight that you're carrying. They're just, it's almost like not carrying anything realistically. Oh, that's just made that bench so much better. So this is my water pouch. I've got a little bit of water left in there, just do a little bit of clean up in a little while, and potentially have a little bit left over to replenish my bottle in a little while, because I've got my morning drink in here, which will go through pretty quick because it's a warm day, and I will need to top that up. But I don't know that I really want to carry too much water, so I might just use that up pretty quick and try to top up my bottle at somebody's tap later on. Snacks as always. I've got a few little bits on the outside, just because they pack better on the outside pouch. Bit of cutlery, so my spatula, a knife and spoon, some gravy granules to go with one of my meals, well, 2 of my meals I should say, and some butter. And this is what I call my ablutions kit. It's just my toothpaste and a few other bits and pieces, toothbrush and like a face like towel and stuff. So just the sort of bits that I use daily just to keep myself clean and semi-hygienic. Got a bag for my shoes, should I need to put my shoes in a bag if it's raining and I want to keep them dry. And that's all on the outside. Hello. Morning. Hello, you. Oh, another one. Hello. I'd stroke you, but I can't touch you. I'm allergic to you. Oh dear. And yeah, then the pack towel. Tim was asking me about these. This thing's been with me since the beginning. I've got 2 of these and a big blue one. They're getting a little bit thin now. I will be honest, it's probably about time to replace these, but they still do the job. These are fantastic. The best thing about these is they dry super fast, and essentially you can use them even when they're damp, because you wring them out, keep going. But because they dry so fast, I mean, just one towel generally does me through that whole trip. Next one on the outside, lights for filming, obviously, and making it so I can see around the campsite in the evening. I've got these what do you call it? Just a standard dishcloth, really, just for cleaning up my pot, because I've got to clean it somehow. I do not want my hot chocolate in the morning tasting like my curry from the night before. This is my first aid kit, which has things like my blister tape and some Germaline and a few other bits and pieces. Just your fairly bog standard kit, ibuprofen, that sort of thing, just to help out. But all of my stuff is in that. I keep it in this orange one. It's the closest thing to red that I have, and essentially that is how I identify it as being my first aid kit. So in a pinch, I can grab this really quick. That's why it's on the outside. But also, I can tell somebody, grab my first aid kit. It's the orange bag on the outside of the rucksack, and it's a pretty easy sort of description, and it's the only one on there. Then I've got a little bar of soap here, which I don't always use, but does come in handy if I'm on a long trip like this, because I don't like stinking that much, to be honest. I've just got I've got like a battery pack and my cables and my sound gear in the side pouch there.
This little pouch has, let's have a little look, my sunscreen and my buff, which I almost used yesterday, but I didn't really get around to using. But this thing's quite useful. Um, I won't go into detail on that right now, but any of you who've got a buff know how really useful these things are. And yeah, just another spare battery for the camera in there. It's a little backup in case things go completely awry. So that's everything on the outside pouches and that from the bag. Oh no, one last thing. This little grey one here. It's actually the pack from my pack towel, but I don't use it for that because I don't see the reason for having a pouch for it. But it's just the right size to put in some emergency matches, my lighter, that tiny little piece of firelight that you saw, and a little bit of hand cream should I need it in a little jar. Just help with that. Obviously, loo roll wrapped up. No, I don't know who leaves home without a bit of loo roll, but you have that. Now, this is my idea for lunches. Basically, lunch now. The first day I brought sarnies with me, but from here on out, it's basically crackers because they were pretty easy to pack and they're fairly lightweight for the sort of the carbs I get. And to go with those, if I can find it, I bought a big tub of peanut butter. I considered going with powdered peanut butter. I've never tried it. If anyone's tried it, let me know if it's any good. But I decided against it just because the pack weight, although it's it'd probably save me a few hundred grams, that would. I just felt that in the middle of the day when it's time for lunch, I don't know that I really want to be starting reconstituting things. That means getting the pan out again, then a lot of cleaning on that afterwards because I imagine it's a bit of a pain to clean. I figured I could maybe bring a separate tub just for that and just make it up as I needed it. But again, I was like, if I'm bringing a tub, why am I going to all that trouble? For this one, I thought I'd just bring this. I don't normally bring something this heavy on a 1, 2, or 3 day trip, but I figured that throughout this thing, I need to focus on protein and make sure I'm getting as much as I can throughout the whole trip. That's what's going to help me recover every day and help my muscles from getting cramps and being absolutely mullered by this. So this is a really good form of protein and also very tasty and very easy to just make my lunches up. I don't like fussing too much in the middle of the day. So that's lunches, basically crackers and peanut butter. I have lots of snacks, and well, these double up as snacks and part of meals. So this is some salmon jerky, fantastic stuff. I highly recommend this. Not sponsored in any way, but yeah, Speyside Smokehouse. Yeah, this stuff is awesome. If you like a bit of salmon, yeah, I've got a few packs of that. Essentially, what I'm thinking is I've got salmon curry planned for 2 nights. Again, like last night, it's all dehydrated sort of vegetables like onion powder and stuff like that, and all the spices, and then the rice in there as well. And all I need to do is throw in the salmon jerky, and I imagine it'll sort of liven back up and add the salmon flavour, plus make it sort of obviously a little bit more protein rich for me. These actually come with a sweet chili pepper flavour, which I think will just add to the curry flavour okay. But my idea is 2 packs of these, which equates to 60 grams in total. I don't know how much that is if it was actually hydrated rather than dehydrated, but yeah, I mean, I think maybe that works out as 160 to make up 100. No, it's 100. So it's 1.6 times that amount. So that's going to make me close to 100 grams worth of, yeah, it's about 100 grams worth of salmon then, therefore. So it's that should work really well. So I've got a few packs of those, as I say. Some of those will be used for snacking during the day, just for a protein snack. But some of the other snacks I've got, I have 3 packs of M&Ms with me. You'll notice I've got all these like little lightweight bags with me. They don't always take the abuse that well, but they're only short-lived. They're just to keep things a bit tidier in my bag so I can grab everything out in one go. Some Tang, big pouch of that. I'm not a fan of drinking just plain water. Call me weird if you like. I'm sure many of you out there agree. plain water is not always the nicest thing, especially when I'm filtering it out of ditches and stuff. It can have a weird taste to it that you just don't really like to taste. So on this trip, I'm getting a lot of tap water, but even that, I mean, tap water can be very hit and miss in different places. We filled up our tank in our van at a house in Lancaster, and my lord, it was so heavy with the chlorine, it was unreal. But yeah, I prefer to have some flavour to my drinks, and also this adds a little bit of electrolytes and stuff as well. So I've got that to make up drinks. I also have some other flavour stuff. This is Kool-Aid powder, and again, it's just basically a strawberry flavouring with a few electrolytes and stuff in. And yeah, can't really do too many electrolytes when I'm out here walking along sweating. So yeah, just some drink powders basically. I've got some dehydrated bread, although I didn't fully dehydrate it, but in the fairness, it's bread and it should last a week. And the idea of this is just, I've dehydrated it a fair bit. In the past, I've actually just had it as is. It's almost like toast, just a bit more crispier. But essentially, I'll toast it up the rest of the way, put a little bit of butter on that, and that'll go with some of my other meals, which I'll get into now with you. This is my big pouch full of dehydrated food. So this is essentially the main part of my meals for the next week now. This one, what is this one? This one looks like my dumpling mix. So you might be wondering, why has he got dumpling mix? Well, straight up, it's just self-raising flour, suet and salt. And that's going to go with, if I can find one of them. No, I can't. So this one is some essentially powdered egg and milk powder and some salt and white pepper and a little bit of flavouring. That'll make up some scrambled egg for me. And I've done this one before many years ago when I was in, I think, Wales with Noah, and it worked really well. So I don't see any reason why that doesn't work. Here we go. This is my beef. This is one of my beef stews, or beef and veg stew. So I've got dehydrated beef that I dehydrated myself, and that's actually turned out really well. Some like dehydrated potato, peas, carrots, some parsnip stuff, and then some flavours as well, powdered onion. And yeah, that'll basically go in, and as with every night that I'm eating, it's a case of just bringing it to the boil and then simmering it for a while. And with the stew, that's where the dumpling mix comes in. While that's simmering for about 20 to 25 minutes, I'll be popping the dumplings in, and I'll have stew and dumplings. I mean, I don't think it gets much better than that on the campsite, because it's going to be a super easy meal. Yeah, I'm just going to have like a full-on stew and dumplings. I mean, I'm going to have those a bit later on in the journey, I think, but they're going to go down a treat. Another curry here. I think this one is possibly, yeah, this is another one for my chicken curry, but I've learned that the chicken doesn't rehydrate that well. I'll keep those as the chicken crisps. I might have a crack at dehydrating my own chicken in future for these, but I didn't really have the chance for that this time. So that's that one. This is another curry with the peas. That's to go with the salmon. And then I've got another one of those. And what else have I got in here? Got all sorts in here. Just finish grabbing all these out. Yeah, so let's go through them quickly. So there's one stew. Hello. So yeah, one stew. Let's retake that. So we've got one stew, salmon curry, chicken curry. It's different to the chicken curry I had last night. This one's more of a tomato-based one. That one was more of a coconut milk-based one. The salmon curries are both coconut-based though. Another beef stew. This one's a scrambled egg. Another scrambled egg. Yeah, that's the other salmon curry. And then that's my dumpling mix. All in all, doesn't weigh too much. It's a little bit heavier than that. I'd definitely say this came out under a kilo for all the dehydrated foods. and that's for the 8 days, so that's pretty good. And then what else we got? Yeah, and then all the other stuff you've pretty much seen. I've got a little bit more drink powder in here. I've got some more hobnobs for later in the week, and then it's just my sleep system basically. So that's it, yeah. And I showed you the sleep system earlier. That's pretty much everything I'm carrying. Oh, now I've got these as well. These are my nighttime. I didn't wear these last night because I just couldn't be bothered to do it, and it was just cold and miserable and awful. But the idea is to change into these at night so I don't like get all my sleep system completely messed up. Thankfully, my trousers weren't too bad, and I just folded up the dirty bits, and it was all right. But yeah, these also add for an extra layer of warmth if I need it. Oh, and the last thing I pulled out, obviously, which you've seen, is my cooking pot. I bought just the one pot. It's probably bigger than I need it to be for most of my meals. However, it's just a comfortable size. But also, when I do my dumplings, I needed that extra size, so the stew will probably fill this up a fair way, and I need space left for the dumplings to cook on top. So I went for the bigger pot. But I do enjoy using this pot actually, and I like the fact that I have a lid to it, which actually adds as a frying pan. Very useful, that very, very useful. And in here, I've actually got the last 2 packs of chicken crisps, and that's about it. That's everything I'm carrying. So as you can tell, it's not a huge amount, but it's certainly enough. It's a super peaceful morning. Just taking a nice gentle pace. Although I've got a blister on one of my toes, I've managed to deal with that and sort that, and it's not really hurting too much. I've got lots of time, so there's no rush. So I won't be marching like I was yesterday, more of a stroll kind of pace. Just really chilling with it. It's fantastic actually. It's such a lovely spot this. I'm just on the side of the Thames here. I think this is Tim's Path, I'm not sure. But if it's not, I'll be surprised. Get more artwork, I guess. I don't know if I can really call that art. I don't know. If they're all unique, if each of the 1,000 mileposts or whatever they're calling them are unique, then yeah, definitely art. Well, out of the countryside and under the M4. I could definitely stealth camp that, couldn't I? There might be a barrier between me and them, but that still isn't very pleasant. I'm definitely glad to be away from that. This is nothing like your modern sort of towns and whatnot. Everything here is unique. These cottages are just something else. And I'm loving these, I'm not sure what they're called actually, I forget. My mum used to have some of these in the garden. I'm at a loss, I can't remember what they're called. But yeah, they are beautiful. Managed to get a really nice stop in for my lunch. I stopped just off the side of a road basically, but in a like communal sort of area in front of some houses.
Once again, the kindness of strangers has proven solid. I have some water for the evening. A kind lady who I knocked on her door because I saw she had announced her tap. I asked if I could top my bottle up. She said the tap wasn't turned on, but she's happy to fill it up from inside. I said, well, I've got a pouch as well, I don't want to put you out. She says, no problem at all, let me fill them up. So, sorted. So now all I need is a campsite. I have one sort of planned out, but as we've already learned, my plans can be scuppered pretty easy on this thing, because I haven't been able to do a proper recce or anything like that. It's just seeing it on the map. It looked like, I think this is the road, yeah, restricted byway. It looked on the map like a decent sort of woodland, where I'm hoping that I can find a space inside, but I have no idea what kind of woodland it is, what it's going to be like, how much it's used. It could be really open and heavily used, in which case it might be of no use. But I'm hoping there'll be some kind of secluded spots and places I can tuck myself away for the evening. Obviously I need to cook my dinner, and so yeah, somewhere a bit private would be good. On I go. Well guys, I made it. It was a struggle. The ascent at the end was pretty brutal. It wasn't the steepest I've ever gone up, but it went on for a long time. It felt like an eternity because I'm at the end of the day just knackered anyway. But yeah, this is the site. So the idea is to put my sleep system down there, and I don't think anyone will be walking over me. There's like a detour on the path. However, this is like a off the way little path. There, I just came off from what were basically 3 or 4 main routes, so I don't expect to see anyone down here. I'm slightly concerned with the downed log and everything, that there might be loads of beetles and stuff that come out in the night, maybe some slugs as well again, but it's certainly damper in here than I would have liked. I came through a bit of woodland that was a lot drier, but also on a really main bridleway that I think I'd have loads of people walking by me in the morning at the very least, but potentially in the evening. So that's the plan. For now, I'm going to process some wood and then we can get on with some cooking. This place is excellent for firewood and for starter. I've got all this dried grass and it took all of about 10 seconds to collect, so it's just full of it over there, as you can see. And this stuff's going to go up nice and easy, and I've got loads of little stuff prepared to get me then to the big stuff, which is over here. So I'll get the lighter, I'll get cracking. This really shouldn't take too much effort. That's why you have to be careful around dry grass. That stuff is highly flammable. Such a big wedge of it there. Get some of this little stuff in. That will certainly almost instantly go. Mind you, it's not as good as I thought it might be. That might take. I've dumped that in a bit haphazardly. Hopefully it will get things going. Maybe done a bit more of the really small stuff. Okay. I was greedy. I should have had a lot more of the small stuff. Right, one second. not as dry as I thought it was actually. I think this is the problem. I'm assuming it's like really dry wood, but it's actually not that dry. All the little stuff's underneath now. Oh, the little stuff is not catching. What is going on? Ooh, right. Done this so just like haphazardly, it's ridiculous. I've just thrown it in and expected it to go, and I've not structured this very well at all. I talk quite often about the importance of structure with a fire, and I've just gone whatever. I think I've relied too heavily on the fact that it's in a fire pit, but oh, it is spreading now. If it spreads, we'll be fine. Let's give it some structure now. It's easier to structure with the big stuff. That's why I was being a little bit lazy, because the little stuff just kind of, it's hard to TP anything or give any crisscrossing sort of structure to tiny little bits. But that's definitely going now. Just load it up, as I say, with a bit of structure, going from small stuff to big stuff. Once that's all going, I'll be able to get the really fat stuff. I've got some sort of like slightly fatter stuff here. This pile isn't actually as hard a wood as I'd like. This is relatively soft wood, and the bark is damp. Ideally I would remove the bark, but I'm not going to go for that. However, the wood from here to here, that is really well seasoned. Even the bark is dry, and that's quite dense, so that should work very well. Well, there we go. Look, we've got a nice temperature there now. So there were three main rookie mistakes, if you like, when doing a wood fire. The first one is trying to jump from the small stuff to the big stuff too quickly, which is what you essentially saw me doing there. I was being a little bit greedy or quick, basically, trying to get it going from the very tiny stuff and just not much of that. You need like a lot of little stuff to get a little bit of big stuff to go, and then you need a lot of that built up to get the next level, and so on and so forth. With the fire pit, it makes it a little easier, and I can cheat a little bit, but I was cheating quite a lot there, so that's why it took 3 attempts to get it to go. The second most common mistake is not having enough wood processed before you do your fire, and if you get to a point where it's quite awkward to go and process more, and now you're rushing around trying to process that but also cook your food, one of two things is going to happen. The fire's going to go out and you're left not being able to cook your food, or you're going to go off and get the wood, but you're going to burn, by the time you come back you'll have burnt all your food because you weren't there to manage it and deal with the fire. So that's not good. So always have enough prepped up ready. This should well be enough to do the sort of 35 minutes of burn time I think I'm going to need at top. I might only need 25 to 30 minutes. And the third mistake that people make with wood fires when they're cooking with them is to get the timing wrong. So if you've not got everything else prepared and you burn through half your fuel before you even get to the point where you're cooking, or if you're basically grilling or something like that and you then go too early because you go when it's all lots of flame like this, rather than building up to the big logs, getting them to burn down so they're just essentially coals, and then grilling over the top of those. And then again, once you've done that, if you miss your window, it's all bad as well. But that is a beautiful bit of heat, nice bit of flame. And another benefit of the wood fire and having it like this, all the little midges and bugs that have been flying around for a little while, they've all disappeared. That's fantastic. So I don't expect to see anybody here, so I think I'm pretty safe just doing it out in the open like this. I don't think anyone's going to be walking down this path. I think I'm pretty safe to assume that. I don't think I'll expect to see any dog walkers or runners or anything like that. There might be the odd person who eventually comes down at some point. I've just got to take the risk and just be like, go for it. Right, that's absolutely cracking on. But the key here is I need to build up a base of embers to be able to maintain this thing easily. So while that's going to build some embers, they're not big enough to really make embers that are going to last a long time. So what I'm going to do is throw in some of these now. And these are big enough, although they're not a very dense wood, they'll make quite big coals when they get going. And now's the time to get them to go, while I've got loads of heat coming off the other bit. As you can see, that was absolutely going. If I waited too long, then there isn't enough like time for them to actually get them to go. But if I go too early, then I just smother the fire by adding all that fuel, and it doesn't have enough heat to basically deal with it. Now, as I said, this stuff's got slightly damp bark, so you can tell that's getting a little bit smoky, and it has damped down the fire a little bit. But I can let that go now while I just prep everything else up. And as with the other day, the prep is going to be pretty simple. There's one little extra step where I have to actually sort out prepping the mix for the dumplings, but that's basically the only extra prep that I have. I might just quickly add some of this to my drink. Oof, that is definitely getting a bit smoky. That's quite a nice thing about having a nice high seat. I can put that quite far away because I can lean forward to it. When I'm sitting on the floor, you have to have it quite close, otherwise you're reaching over and it's just a hassle. But like this, it's pretty alright. So this is my orange powder. This is basically some sort of concoction that comes from America, from what I understand. But it makes a very nice tangy orange drink, and it does have, it does have a few bits in it, some vitamin C and D. Doesn't have any protein in it, and I think they might have yeah, I think this has like some sodium in it and maybe some other electrolytes as well. I think probably like maybe have some calcium in it, that sort of thing. There you go. So that's not too smoky, and it is starting to get the fatter wood to burn. As I say, it's a bit slow to go because of the dampness in the bark, but once the bark's dried off, it's going to go very nicely, and it's starting to get to that point now. Some of the bark is dry, and you can see the flames going really, really well. Right, so I'll just make sure this is still well mixed. Roughly divide this in half. Trick with that in a bag, look. Get it all in the bottom, roughly evened out, and then pick your point, chop it upwards. I can twist this one, and that'll stay inside, while this one I can throw out into my top, which is where I'm going to mix this. I think it's big enough to mix it in. So the most important thing here is don't spill this stuff off the edge, which is almost bound to happen, let's face it. So I need to add my water a little at a time. I do not want to go crazy. Another rookie mistake though that people make, not putting their lid back on in the middle of using stuff. Always put your lid back on. Well, that fire, look, needs a little bit more fuel. That'll get going nicely. 4 more pieces of that. That's actually relatively good, that is, the wood. It's better than I thought it was going to be. So just slowly and carefully mix this together. Yeah, I definitely need more water. I'll give it about the same again. As I will say, with this sort of thing, I can always add more, but I can't take it away. And while at home I would just add some extra dry ingredients to fix the mistake of adding too much water, that isn't likely to happen here. I don't really want to use up the rest of my dry ingredients because they're for another day. That's not bad. There's a little bit left on the pan, but I think I can probably get that off with a bit of a cloth wipe or something like that. But yeah, that's my dumpling mix. It's not much, but I do want to make just like some very, very small dumplings essentially. I don't want them too big because they'll obviously expand in there. If they get too big, it'll be crazy. So 3 little ones I think is what we're looking for here. 3 little diddy little dumplings. There we go. Look at that. Hey, 3 dumplings on trail. Awesome. I think I might actually put some of these fat ones on as well. Need to build up a little bit more in there. That's good. That there. Again, I've got to judge the amount of water here. But I have a bit of leeway here. It has to be enough to basically keep the dumplings off the bottom and to obviously hydrate the meat and the vegetables. If I put too much in, it's not a big deal because the final ingredient of this meal is some gravy granules, but I won't put them in until the end because I'll run the risk of burning it all on the bottom, because this is going to be hard to control. So the more fluid or runny basically I have that, the better. If I add this, it'll thicken it up and then it'll just burn. So I'm going to put these in at the end. Often I put them in before the dumplings, but that's not happening today. I think that's going to come to the boil even without the lid on, which is useful because I've got the dumplings on the lid at the moment. I'm in no rush there. I've got so much wood in there at the moment. Yeah, it's producing some nice steady heat right now. Oh, yeah, it's still a bit smoky. Yeah, admittedly, none of the wood is ideal. It's just been too damp lately. I think by the end of the week, I'll certainly be finding some more dry wood, as it's not due to rain a lot throughout the week. Well, touch wood. Well, that's to the boil now. So I'm going to take it off the heat for a second while I put the dumplings in. Make sure I stir that bottom fully, because once I've done this, I can't stir it anymore. That's good. 1 dumpling in, 2 dumplings in, 3 dumplings in. Okay. That is far too of a rager now. I'm going to have to manually control this for a while. That was always a potential thing there. I could throw in some other woods and slow it down for a while, but it'll just get bigger again. It's got a lot of really good wood in there. Oof. I guess I could stir this, technically. Could give it a slow stir. Give it a slow stir like that. Normally I'd have the lid on, but you know, when I'm got the dumplings cooking, but I can't do that one now. But as long as they're in the, they're quite deep in there. And let's do. So they're going to cook fine. If anything, it's trying not to cook them so fast. That's the trick here. The dumplings are certainly starting to swell, which is a good sign. That means they're cooking. Just roll them over from time to time. Normally I don't do this at all, but as I've not got a lid on, I'm just going to gently roll them over to make sure they cook all through, and try to do it as evenly as possible. Well, that's getting down to not a simmer, but close to it. So I'm going to just put this lid on. And I could put it on all the way, but what I'm going to do is just crack it a little bit. That's going to contain some heat, keep that up at a good temperature. I'm not going to add any more wood to this. I'm just going to cook either until I think it's done, or until the wood is basically through, because there's so much heat coming from the coals. As I said, if I get those big fat coals down in there, they'll give off heat for like a long time. This is the sort of temperature you want if you was frying some chicken, grilling some chicken or salmon or something like that. You've got like, I've got a lovely cooking temperature there, and I'm going to have a good at least another 5 minutes of that. They've been on for about 10 minutes now, and the size of them, I don't think these dumplings are going to need more than about 15 minutes. They might need a smidge more than that, but if it comes to it, I can close the lid up all the way and just contain as much heat as possible. But yeah, they're perfectly fine cooking away like that right now. Let's have a little look now. Let's see how it's looking. Oh yeah, that's cooked through perfectly. So the next thing to do is to carefully take, you know, that bit of dumpling I chopped off. I'm just going to burn my mouth a bit. Oh, there. Oh, you have no idea. That is tremendous. Oh, God. That's good anyway, but I mean, everything tastes better when you've been hiking all day and you're on camp. Bless him, Paul had to, I saw his video today from the weekend. He was out with Ryan, sorry, not Chris, it was Ryan this time, his supervisor, and yeah, they were so cold, they kiboshed the morning and had breakfast elsewhere, and I'm sure it tasted as good, but there's something about having it on trail. Oh, don't tell me I've burnt that on the bottom now. I've given that a little bit of a burn on the bottom. Right, well, it's not a big deal. A few bits have caught. I'll deal with that later. It's not the end of the world. That's actually needing a little bit of extra water. But that's fine, because it's actually very, very hot. So that'll just cool it down a little bit. If I add a little bit of water, make it more manageable heat to eat. There we go. That's already quite a thick stew, actually. So lesson learned for the next time, continue to stir even when I'm doing the dumplings at the end, and also watch the water level, maybe add some more if I need to, because I could have done, it was going so well. So a little bit of gravy granules. Won't need many of these, to be fair. It's already quite thick. But I want to add some because it'll give it a much more beefy flavour. Oh yeah, that did the job. Oh, that smells good. Oh, just look at that. Let me get the dumplings back in. Oh, don't lose the dumpling. That was nearly a disaster. Just gonna. So, beef and veg stew and dumplings. It really doesn't get better than that. I say it all the time. I don't know. That is amazing. Look at that. That is fantastic. All right. I need my spoon. I'm not eating with a spatula. That's a recipe for disaster. Oh yeah, that's a good temperature for eating actually. I'm happy with that. So, what I want to do is just pop this in there so I can put it on my lap without getting me all mucky. There you go. Job's a good one. And I just need a spoon. That's another reason why you always make sure you have your lid on. Firstly, to stop stuff getting in it, but also to make sure it doesn't spill if it falls over. Alright, I'm a bit naughty, I like to have my dumplings first. Oh. Try a little bit of the stew. Oh, it's still very hot. Now, the flavours are really good. For the most part, texture is bang on. The beef is still a little bit firm. When I cook it at home, it's like melt in the mouth. But obviously, this has been dehydrated. But that said, it's not like it's like a rock in my mouth. When I chew it, it breaks apart. It's just not got the same texture. But that's fine. I mean, the flavour's all there. I mean, it's got everything I need. It's going to feed the muscles. I mean, it's just awesome. I'm going to try, there's a big lump of meat here. I'm going to try that on its own. Yeah, it's fine. Breaks apart as you chew it. It's just got a different texture, but I'll be honest, I've had worse than that when I've cooked it at home and it's just not quite gone the way it's supposed to. It's not chewy. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. That is a result. Well, I'm going to get stuck in. I'll see you guys soon. There we go. And that's it. And then I don't think I need to be in the quilt just yet. It's pretty mild still. So that's it from me, guys. I'm ready for bed and the day is done. But the adventure doesn't stop here. There'll be another episode nice and soon. If you don't want to miss that, make sure you're subscribed and I'll see you then. Have fun.